Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Captain Fizz and Mask Guy Show. I, of course, as always, am Logo, that Mask Guy. So, we're going to be talking about video games right now. So, what? Why don't you listen to our brand new theme music? I think it's new. I don't know. Just play the damn music.
We don't have music. Not currently at this moment. Get with the times! We fired out.
I thought we had new music.
We can't currently use the music because it's under contract and we have to orchestrate a contract. And I like how you throw us into music before I even have a chance to introduce myself. So
boo-hoo.
You are that Mask Guy.
I am Loco.
I am Captain Fizz, and this is the Captain Fizz and Mask Guy Show.
You know what I just found out today?
What did you find out today?
I found out today there's actually a comedian that goes by the name That Mask Guy, which really pisses me off because I think it's copyright infringement.
No, because you haven't copyrighted your name, therefore it doesn't count.
Damn it, I need to get my name copyrighted.
Yes, but now that someone else has used it, it's virtually impossible for you to have a copyrighted name.
Damn it, I need to come up with a name then.
You are not allowed to come up with a name.
Damn it.
You are that Mask Guy, you have always been that Mask Guy, and you will continue to be that Mask Guy.
Okay, fine.
So today, we are going to talk about everything.
Well, we're talking about video games.
That is everything.
That is, video games definitely have come a long way from, from when I was a child, back when I had myself a Nintendo Entertainment System.
Oh, you know what? Okay, I have to say this. Last episode we were talking about, C4 Comic-Con. There was one aspect of the Comic-Con that I failed to mention on that show. They did a special TV thing, and like one of those old, really tiny TVs, really bad pictures of Mario Brothers with the original Nintendo system. But they jerry-rigged the machine, so the controller was like one of those, the Wii controllers. So little tiny buttons does different things, and they wanted me to play it, and I'm like, no, because I'll probably never stop. And honestly, I like having buttons that tell me, this is A, this is B, this is screw you.
Well, again, I remember having the original Nintendo. I couldn't actually get Super Mario Brothers when I first bought it, so I ended up getting a game called Ice Hockey. And I played that game endlessly. I found it for a while to be very difficult until I realized that the two toughest teams on that game to beat were the Canadians and the Russians. And so I always was Canada until I had to beat the Canadians. Then I was Russia.
That makes absolutely no sense because everyone knows the Canadians are more better at hockey than the Russians. And
apparently not according to ice hockey.
Yeah, well, that was old, outdated hockey memorabilia.
Hey, shut up. That was a great game.
May have been a great game in its time.
It was a great game. That game still holds up, I say. Come on, man. You gotta say something. Can't have any dead air. Come on. Get it back on here, man. What's wrong with you?
You're defending a game that was on a very old system that you had to blow for it to work.
Honestly, the kids of this generation do not know how hard it was to play video games. In my day, you had to go off and blow into a video game system before the games would work.
And not just once. We're talking like huffing and puffing for a good 5-10 minutes just to get it to work.
Yeah, you had to get all the dust out. You had to blow, the bottom of the cartridge. Honestly, when you finally were able to play the game, you deserved it, man.
But you put so much energy just to start the stupid game that you didn't want to play it anymore because you were afraid that if you started it, the game would malfunction and you would be stuck with 4 Marios.
I never had that problem. But honestly, getting that Nintendo, man, that was great. I eventually got Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, and 3. I had both the Legend of Zeldas that came out on that system.
Yeah.
It was by far, it was one of my favorite systems. Although my favorite Nintendo system to this very day probably is the Super Nintendo. And I will bring that up later because you apparently got some stuff you want to talk about.
I have to say one thing about the original Nintendo. There was 2 games that I played more than anything else. And knowing these 2 games is very important for the rest of my story. Now, I played Mario Brothers and Zelda. Now, one day I'm playing Mario Brothers and the game decided to freeze. Now, the game apparently knows me so well, it froze it to a point that it looked like it was Zelda. So I had a Mario Brothers game frozen to look like Zelda. Yeah. I don't understand why the game was able to do that or how, but it was the greatest moment in my life to have a frozen game of Mario as Zelda. So it was Mario Zelda.
Mario Zelda.
Mario Zelda.
Mario Zelda. I don't know, but yeah, sorry.
You just went full retard.
Yeah, excuse me, dude. Never use that word again in my presence.
Okay.
There are a few words that I find.
I won't use full anymore.
I'm gonna throw something at you. But no, I mean, the original, Nintendo. I mean, for me, again, it was great. Especially when
Saturday mornings.
Saturday mornings. Oh my god! And I mean, the Game Genie.
God.
This thing that allowed you to put in cheat codes for games. I mean,
I couldn't remember how to put the stupid Game Genie in, let alone punch in the codes.
Honestly, I mean, that was great. That could be almost any game. I remember playing Mario Brothers, not Super Mario Bros., but Mario Brothers, and Pac-Man, and thinking, okay, I'm going to beat this game, and only to realize that you get up to level 100. And when you beat level 100, it just takes you back to 1. So it's like, oh my god, I just went off, and I've spent 3 hours with infinite lives to beat this game, and it just takes me back to 1.
My favorite all-time game, and this is the saddest thing for me to admit, would be Duck Hunter.
Duck Hunt was good. I liked it. I loved it.
I got to the point I played it so much that I actually enjoyed shooting the dog.
I think a lot of people did, actually. But I remember in the early days, you could actually get a cartridge that had both Duck Hunt and Mario Brothers on it with the gun. So you could go off, you could play, Super Mario Brothers, and then you could, when you're done, you just quit to the main screen, and then you could go play Duck Hunt for a little bit.
Yes, and I liked Duck Hunter. I liked shooting ducks because the stupid ducks kept flying away, and they deserved it because they asked for it. I pictured they were Canadian geese, and my life was better.
I don't know, for whatever reason, I think of Duck Hunt, and now these days I think of like Duck Dynasty now for whatever reason.
That's because the whole Duck Hunt has become corrupted by the beard. And I really should not say that considering this is November and it is No Shave November.
No Shave November. I think it's Movember, as some people call it,
and
or No Beard Member.
I already look like a furry freak.
And honestly, I grew back my Van Dyke because I was sick and tired of looking at my chin.
And I grew back my whatchamacallit because I got too lazy to pick up a razor.
Yeah, I completely believe that. Moving on, I know you've brought this up a couple times over the course of the last 4 or 5 months. You're a big fan, or you had, what was it, the Sega Genesis, wasn't it?
I had the Sega Genesis. Now, anyone out there who had the Sega Genesis, I feel for you. You probably suffer from the same disease as me, and that's I can't feel my thumb-itis. It was the thickest machine I have ever seen. I don't understand how we were stupid enough to believe a machine that big was worthy to play, but I do remember a lot of hours, and I mean hours, spent plugged into the wall because it died in minutes, playing, Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog. I remember my dentist office actually had an Sega, and it was the only time I ever actually got a chance to play it. And I mean, Sonic was, I think, the only game they actually had there.
Sonic was the only game worth playing. Nope, that's a lie. I had a motorcycle game that I enjoyed crashing into cars because I got really bored of driving a motorcycle in a straight line. It was virtually impossible to win a game that has no ending. Which is pretty much a classic Sega move. They create games that you cannot beat.
There's a couple games like that, not just for Sega, but for the Nintendo. There's a game, I believe it was for the Nintendo, I think it was for Super Nintendo, called Battletoads. And apparently, the American version of this, Battletoads, if you played the 2-player mode, it was impossible to beat the game.
All games that allow you to play 2-player are virtually impossible to beat.
That's not true. There's a lot of 2-person games that, that are easier to win with 2 players than with 1 player.
Name one.
I would say Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
Shut up.
The arcade game.
Shut up.
Because it's the same number of enemies regardless of whether you're playing 1 player or 2.
You know what? I remember playing that, and I say shut up. Because now I want to go back and play it, and I can't.
Another game, I don't know, actually, you don't see them as much now as when we were younger. But, I mean, there's the arcades. I mean, they're still there, but, I mean, they're not as prominent now as even, say, before we were, even born.
Yes, I remember being able to walk down to the corner and go to an arcade. Yes, kids, they actually existed.
There was a few of them,
And yes, they took quarters, and yes, they stole the quarters.
Absolutely. I mean,
damn whippersnappers.
Remember going to Topi Gijo's or Chuck E. Cheese?
Chuck E. Cheese sucked. Because,
the pizza was terrible, but I mean, it was fun to play the video games.
But you could spend hours there, and all of a sudden, you're there, and you believe it's an hour. Next thing you know, they're telling you to leave because they're closing up.
I just remember going off and Topo Gijo's going off and spending so much money to go off and get these stupid tickets to buy things that I probably could have just used the money I had in my pockets to begin with, and would have been cheaper to buy.
I always got the stupid tickets to get an eraser. Don't ask me why. It was always an eraser. Why? Because I got fed up of winning tickets after like 5.
I think, my big goal was to get a pair of magic handcuffs, the ones that you just have to push the button and lock themselves.
And now they call them cheap, manufacturers.
Yeah.
They're not magic anymore. It's just they're cheap. You can, I hit the button. I get out of handcuffs now. Okay.
Well, it's supposed to be for like those magicians, in the audience.
Magicians do not exist. They were a figment of our imagination, much like our entire 90s. That was a blur.
The blur. Speaking of the 90s, of course, with the introduction into the 90s, of course, there was the Super Nintendo.
Super Nintendo,
which, as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, was probably my favorite system with Nintendo. And one of the reasons for that, or two of the reasons, was number one, Super Mario World, which I thought was a really awesome game. And the other one was Chrono Trigger, which I will argue to this day is probably my favorite video game of all time.
Okay, my favorite system, other than the hand-breaking Sega Genesis, would be the Nintendo 64, and there's only one reason for that. Super Smash Brothers.
I never actually played Super Smash Brothers.
I absolutely loved it because I played as Donkey Kong, and with how Marvel and Hulk always says Hulk Smash, well, with Donkey Kong, it was Donkey Kong Hammer. I always liked hitting people with a hammer. I said the flying, there was like Samus and Link and Mario, of course.
Oh, and Samus, the whole Metroid series. Oh
Yes.
my goodness, you know.
Yo, blast from the past.